Are you trying to get your shift together?
Welcome to the Shift Sisters podcast, where real conversations inspire real transformations. We're not experts, but we're experiencers. I'm Sandra Sa.
And I'm Jennifer Richter.
We're your Shift Sisters.
Whether you're shifting like a sloth or it looks like you're having an exorcism, this is your space to breathe, reflect, and remember. We're here to talk shift with you. Welcome back, Shifties. I don't know how you guys feel about our last episode of protecting the peace and that inner economy. If everybody's overwhelmed or if you're inspired, but today we are going to talk about boundaries, not barriers. It's a magical time of the year, right? Cinnamon's in the air. Look at Sandra. She's looking like a lumberjack over there, a little sexy lumberjack. Lumberjack chic. I love that. The leaves are falling and it's real that it's family tension season too. I hate to say it because I don't ever want to jump on the negative bandwagon, but I guess I have to be honest about these things too. I'm your host, Jennifer Richter, and my awesome co-host here is Sandra Sa, and we are so glad that you have made time to join us today. We're going to dive in to something that hits home for so many of us within this Protecting Your Peace series. And we're talking about the boundaries, not barriers, because there's a big difference. So our goal here is to help you spot the differences, understand what emotional peace feels like in your everyday life, and walk away with some tools to set boundaries that connect you, not divide you. Gosh, this has been a lifelong lesson for me. So I don't know about you. I can't wait to hear all your tips and tricks.
Oh,
You know,
it's a big one, and it's a big one for everyone. When I mentioned that we run a podcast, one of the biggest topics are like, are you going to talk about family? Are you going to talk about boundaries? You're going to talk about toxic circumstances and how to keep from that. So this is a really good topic, especially during this time of year.
good. Well, this episode was actually inspired by a wise little lady, almost a full 12 years old,
Mhm.
who dropped the gem boundaries, not barriers. It was my daughter, Charlotte. And I was like, girl, where'd you come up with that stuff at? And she's like, I don't know. It just came to me. And it's interesting because we do these little practices of, letting information from source come to you and finding ways to implement it. Why are you getting this message? What does it mean? Why are you learning it right now? So we've had a lot of talks, her and I, about boundaries and barriers and what that looks like in her 12-year-old little life.
I love
But
that perspective.
right?
Yeah.
And it really aligns with something I've always said that has seemed to, I don't know, be a mind blower for Adam, is that you teach others how you want to be treated by what you allow. Have you heard that before?
Yes. It's like, there is a saying that goes with it. It's like slipping my brain at this time. People will do to you what you allow them to do. And it doesn't have to be overt or spoken. It's just what you allow. So yes, it's such a strong message.
It really is. And boundaries aren't about pushing people away. They're like instructions on how to love me well, right? So let's just get into it.
Mm.
I am going to talk about my emotional boundaries for the moment with our shift forecast. I don't know how you're feeling today, Sandra, but I am patchy hope, right? Like I might seem vibrant and energetic to a lot of people, but patchy hope is light breaking through and you're not consistent yet, which means like, yeah, I'm doing what I have to do, but I'm not 100% feeling it. I'm doing some health stuff, right? I'm on these health shifts of different things and I'm motivated to understand it and I'm motivated to get through this process with education and enlightenment. And I'm motivated to get to the other side where I feel amazing in so many ways. But right now, on the inside, like I'm having these days where, I'm getting like the tension headaches or the detox headaches and things like that, or my energy and mood it's just not consistent right now. And that's okay. Like it just is what it is. So I'm Patchy Hope. And to support my Patchy Hope energy, have you ever had Tulsi basil tea, Sandra?
And
So I grow it now.
okay.
And I first had Tulsi tea at the retreat that we went to in April over by West Palm. And they made, kombuchas and Tulsi tea and all these different things that were always available for people to drink. And I was like, oh, I've always been curious about Tulsi basil. I have the essential oil. I've never really experienced it. I don't know much about it. Let me taste it. Instantly was like, my soul was like, I've always been looking for you. And it has this subtle undertone. I mean, it's literally just brewed Tulsi basil leaves, which is very different from Italian basil. And I put a little bit of honey in there, and that's it. And it has a undertone of peppermint and cinnamon,
Mm.
right? The weird flavors that you were like, well, I don't know if those would be good together, but it's so good. And so I actually just added it to my electrolyte. It's a blood orange electrolyte that I put in there. And so I just put it with my Tulsi basil tea so I could get some electrolytes and all the Tulsi basil benefits.
I love that. I love, these series, the mocktails, all the things that we can make to help support us in this journey. Touche.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. You have to make me some tea next time I see you because I have to
I
try what it.
do. Well, I ordered a whole bag of seeds
Wow.
because my one plant, I can get four, because it's a really big plant. I can get 4 pitchers of tea out of it. So I'm like, oh man, good thing I have 8 acres because I'm going to need a whole farm of this stuff. It's so good.
Amazing. Yes. And all the health benefits. I just love stuff like that.
It's so good. So, to assist my patchy hope, I have the adaptive oil today, which is actually a blend. I don't even know what's all in it. I'd have to get my glasses out, and I'm not doing that right now. But it's the calming blend because I do need to calm my nervous system. Everything's kind of a little busy and overactive because I'm in this transition space with health from what I used to be and where I'm going, and I'm right in the middle. So, it's dealing with all of it at the same time. So I am using this regularly. Did I put adaptive in your little
I have
pack?
it. I have it.
Yay!
Adaptive.
Good job. Smells really good, huh?
It does. Calming is a good word for it. I almost want to drink it.
Really?
I
But
want it like in a tea
oh,
form.
I do not.
No, there's something about it that feels so like I want it. I want to like
It smells
ingest
a
it.
little bit like mildly like menthol
Hmm.
in there for me. So for me, I'm like, oh, I do not want that in my mouth. I mean, to each his own.
I love matcha because it tastes like dirt. So
Yeah, we do have some different flavor profiles, don't we? Well, let's smell in our oils. That's our breath for today. If everybody wants to pretend they have oils in their hand and do a cup breathing too, it's just good to take that deep breath, regardless if you're smelling oils or what. And even if you don't have that oil, if you have something that you like the scent of, take a big whiff.
yes,
Well, let's talk about these boundaries. What are they, anyways? We'll have to get into the basics here. Picture for just a moment your emotional space is like a house, and a boundary is your front door. You decide if you answer it and who you allow to come in and when. But a barrier would be a brick wall. Nobody's getting in, not even the good stuff. So, boundaries protect our peace while keeping us open to connection. And barriers, though often come through being hurt, feeling misunderstood, or plain drained, kind of like how we were talking about not budgeting our emotional currency and we're in that deficit, right? We're bankrupt.
yeah,
And it's because we didn't have those boundaries. So, saying yes when you really want to say no, that is a missing boundary. Or maybe you go silent just to keep the peace, but deep down you're just avoiding conflict. And in my opinion, this is a spoiler alert, speaking up does not have to mean drama. It does not have to mean conflict. What do you feel about that, Sandra? Do you feel like being quiet to avoid conflict is really what's gonna happen?
Yeah, so choosing words wisely is so important. Like being economical with your words,
Mm.
making sure that it is very clear because speaking up can easily be misinterpreted as, putting up that barrier of, oh well, the person now doesn't like me or there's an issue, as opposed to, I just want to bring out the circumstance of the situation. And it's not about me hating or putting up a boundary against you. It's just, let's talk about what happened. So I agree. And I think in order to kind of add to your emotional currency, you have those times where you speak up and you say what you feel. But I also am very careful about how I say it and being very neutral about it, because sometimes you just want the person to see what they've done
Well,
or
we're gonna talk about that, and I can't wait to get some of the Sandra tips because God knows I think you're the one that's inspired me to practice this a bit more. But when
Mm.
you think about a boundary in general, what comes up in your body for you?
When I think about a boundary, unfortunately, I think of just being defensive, like the being on the defense, right?
Okay.
It's like I'm putting on my armor a little bit, and I need to shift my thoughts around that. And I love, love, love the analogy of the house. I think that's such a great and powerful way to help me work through a boundary, as opposed to it being, I'm putting this down and this is the line in the sand and you can't cross it. That's not the approach that I typically want to take. But to know that the door is kind of the entryway is perfect.
Yeah, because
So,
I was kinda thinking when you're talking about being defensive, and I'm like, well, that would be like having a house with no windows or doors, right?
yeah, yeah, exactly. So I think this is going to be a really impactful episode for me as I work through what my boundaries are and how they're expressed and how they are shown to others.
Well, then now let's do it on the flip side. When you think about barriers,
Hmm.
what changes in your body?
If boundaries got me on the defense, barriers are wars. Like, it's so much more intense, and there needed to be something to have me create this wall, which, is a multitude of bricks and all of this, so it builds and it's strong and it's so, maybe I'm thinking about it also in a kind of negative space. But when I think about when I think barriers, I think of, protecting myself from war.
I'm right there with you. And that's why I was spending some time digging into this topic because once I realized after all these years that I had a ton of barriers and not boundaries, that made me go, I need to dig in to understand what this is. What are the differences? How does it make me feel? And then how do I utilize both of them? And it was so interesting when I was contemplating all this and then Charlotte comes to me literally. She was just at her desk and it was like a stroke of genius, right? Cuz it literally just came to her head and she ran to me and she was like, "Mom, boundaries, not barriers." And I didn't tell her what I was working on or anything like that. She was just a little portal delivering messages, confirming to me that I was researching and trying to understand the right things. So your messages come in all kinds of ways to show when you're aligned. Sandra, do you have like a time in particular though in your life where you realized you didn't have good boundaries?
Yeah, I think going back to kind of the emotional currency piece,
Mhm.
when I had said to you that there were a couple times in my life that I was bankrupt,
Mhm.
and I was bankrupt because I didn't have those boundaries in place. And think I don't think I knew how to put up those boundaries. And I was overtaken by all the things that were implicitly or explicitly shared in terms of what was needed from me.
Mhm.
So some things were overtly, requested or asked, or this is what I had to do. And other things were me filling in the gaps and giving and giving and giving when it wasn't asked. So yes, those times in my life when I think about when the universe put me on my ass and said, "You're going to rot in bed and you're going to stay in that space because you need to conserve your emotional currency so that you can get up to be a little stronger and to be able to start creating those boundaries." I think,
Mhm.
yeah, I definitely have been in those spaces where I didn't have the courage.
Yep. Well, do you I mean, for me, I realize when I start reflecting on a lot of this, a lot of these places where I didn't have a boundary was all from me. It
Yeah.
wasn't someone else that
Yes.
didn't create the boundary. The other person can't create it,
Mhm.
right? They're just gonna do what they're gonna do, and you don't always just have to accept it, and it doesn't have to be a conflict, and it doesn't have to be drama. When did you Is there a time, though, that you confused a boundary with a barrier, like a wall, that you thought it was a boundary, but really it was this wall you're putting up?
Yes, around love. So I
I love
had,
your love story.
yes, girl, I had a huge wall up and I didn't want anyone peeking over it, approaching it. There were landmines all around the
Huh?
wall. And somehow, some way, my wonderful husband tiptoed around all the landmines and he, tunneled under the wall and came out through the other side. And I deadbolted my doors and he was like kindly knocking on it so softly and just, giving me my time. And I think that the other piece of it is, as strongly as I thought my wall was reinforced and impenetrable, there are things that are greater than me that have torn down some walls. And this is one of those times in my life where I rejected it. I rejected it. I wasn't ready. I didn't want it in my emotional state because I was so hurt and I was trying to protect myself. I should have had boundaries, but not the huge. My wall was made of steel, girl, but he still got. He figured it out and was
Mhm.
able
He's
to get.
superhero.
Yes,
Mhm.
yes. So yeah, so that was a big time in my life that that gave me that opportunity to see the difference between the two.
That's a big one, and sometimes you know, it's so important to think about the barriers that we set up for ourselves around love,
Hmm.
because it's so true, because that's the, you know, most vulnerable spot of us that we don't want anybody to come in and hurt us, and so I think a lot of people struggle with that one. We often build these barriers instead of boundaries in sneaky ways, like ignoring text messages, being passive aggressive, oversharing and then resenting it, or playing it cool when you're actually hurt. These are emotional forts we build because feeling vulnerable, like, just feels unsafe. But here's the truth, I mean, healthy relationships thrive on vulnerable communication.
Yeah.
It's vulnerability is a part of true peace, but it's gotta be paired with boundaries, not explosive reactions.
Hmm.
Um, I have had a hard time in my life because even though being vulnerable isn't comfortable, I will always, or I should say, I will often, I can't say always, I will often push myself to be vulnerable because I really appreciate and value deep and real conversations, even when it's uncomfortable, because that's actually what makes relationships better. It makes them more rich and it builds that depth and connection. And I have certain people in my life, uh, they can't, not only do they not think deep, they never could be vulnerable. Never could they have real conversations like this because it is literally so uncomfortable for them. It would make their skin crawl. They'll run away, they'll deflect, they'll shut down. Like they instantly think being vulnerable means conflict or drama or danger. What's your take on being vulnerable in a relationship?
And I think, yeah, I it's one would wish that they can have that level of vulnerability with every person that is in their lives, but I tend to have folks that think I am putting up my dukes, that I'm ready to fight, and it's
Mhm.
not a fight.
Mhm.
And it's not
It's passion.
it right. And it's if it's something that affects me emotionally,
Mhm.
I want to be able to say like, "Hey, this is how I feel,"
Yes.
or
And you wanna be met with safety and
right,
nurturing and acceptance,
right.
not
And
explosion.
I try, as I said to you earlier, to really be very clear with my words, right? And instead of because words have connotation and they have feeling behind it. And I also try to not do this in some sort of text form because you cannot read emotion. You cannot get the true essence of the person if you're doing it on a because the minute you read it depending on what it is, you can immediately go down that, well, look at them, they're all defensive and being nasty about it or whatever it is. So I definitely I agree with you about the vulnerability piece, but I don't know if people are equipped with that ability to do that. And I think we're not in a society where we sit around and have coffee talk. We're not in a society where we come together and even have dinner together, right?
Yes.
Just think about basic interactions. We're on our phones, we're watching TV, we're in the same house, but never
Mhm.
check in,
Yeah.
right? And it's just when do we have that opportunity? And that is going to help strengthen the muscle of being open and communicative and vulnerable and things. So,
And I'm trying to make peace with, okay, let me find a comfort zone of how I can be comfortable with the loved ones in my life that cannot go deep and cannot be vulnerable because I can't control their shift. I can't control their growth and their pace, right? That's going to be all in their own management. But I had to come to an understanding that if I at least feel like they love me and have my best interests at heart, and even though they're not matching me by being vulnerable or forthcoming, as long as they're still loving me and want good intentions, I need to understand like that has to be enough in that particular relationship because I'm just expecting that if I'm going to be forthcoming and very vulnerable, then they are too, and it doesn't have to be, I show you mine, you show me yours. It doesn't have to be that.
yes. It's also like thinking about you have there's different ages of people. So there's infants and you have, children and then teenagers and grandparents and you love them, but
Mhm.
they may not have the skills, the communication, the ability to be able to give what you can give, but it doesn't mean that you don't love them, right? So if the toddler can't tell you that they really want to have that toy, you don't shun them away because it's development, right? And you work with them on ways that speak to them. You're not going to sit there with a dissertation on what it takes to ask for that toy. You're going to sit with them and really work with them in language that they understand to help them express to you in the way that makes sense to them what their needs are. And I think that's something that I'm working with people in my life where I have to stop and say, okay, the approach that I would take doesn't necessarily work, but let me see what's the best way to communicate to this person. And it's almost like love languages in a sense, right? Where you really find what speaks to them, what works for them, and pivot in a way. Because as I said, my approach will not work for everyone. So that's my way of trying to extend myself to help support communication and hopefully down the road vulnerable communication. But I think you have to start there
Yeah.
with making sure you have that bridge.
It's so true, and you're talking about the love languages. That book, Surrounded by Idiots, is even though the title is very off-putting,
Hmm.
is about that communication language style and how to understand each person's style and how to work with it, and that's one of the things that I've been really trying to work on in the last couple years is understanding other people's style respectfully while still staying true to my own style and stop trying to get everybody to conform to the way I do things.
Hmm. Right.
So even though I think it's the best, no, I'm just joking. I'm just joking. But boundaries versus barriers in action. So what happens when your boundaries get pushed especially by people we love, it can feel confusing, uncomfortable, and even triggering. I have to throw in a side note. This could literally be boundaries and barriers thing could be in so many different areas of your life, but I have to mention a physical way as well too.
Mhm.
And I'm super passionate about this because I think it can lead to other things. But have you ever seen where parents will force their children to hug
Yes.
or accept a hug from a stranger or a family member or another child or whatever, where they're like, come on, give them a hug, or you have to give them that toy to share, or those types of things. For me as a parent, that does not fly for me because that is crossing boundaries. I think it's super important for people to understand their safe space with their body. And especially it starts with children, right? And I don't care if you're their grandparent or their teacher or their coach or their best friend. I do not force physical touch. Like, you know, if you want to do fist bump or high fives or hugs, or if you just, you can even say things like, can I have, or can I give you a hug, or things like that. And if a kiddo says, no, thank you, say, okay, that's cool. Thanks for meeting you. So good to hang out with you today. Whatever. You can still express your gratitude and appreciation and affection verbally. But I think starting with that physical thing, in my opinion, leads to the other things, right? Because then you build this confidence in knowing what you will allow and what you won't allow. And then it goes with just interactions and all these other things in your life. And it's a great opportunity for people in uh, schools of all kinds and in your home, if you're a parent, to help your children to develop those physical boundaries, which will ripple into other areas of their life.
Mm.
Sorry, it's a little tangent of mine. It is. I just like it makes me crazy when people force their children to
Yeah, for
accept
sure.
physical things from other people. But we want a chance to reinforce these values. So, when this stuff comes up and your boundaries are getting tested, take a deep breath first. Pretend you've got those oils. Go into the bathroom, go into a room if you need to just breathe for a second, because you don't want to react from guilt or anger or shame. You want to do like Sandra and use calm, direct language to restate your limit so that you don't over explain and you don't overreact. So, for example, without getting into the full big story, my husband, who is on the spectrum, used to have an extremely hard time with self control. And if there was a misunderstanding or a disagreement, and I was completely overwhelmed already with his behavior and intensity, for myself and my own well being, I need to take a moment. Sometimes it's an hour, sometimes it's the whole day. It just depends on what it is. And I would say, I need a break for a moment and we can revisit this. I don't have anything to give to this right now. I have to take a breath to recenter myself, because if I don't, that's when I'm going to overreact. That's when I'm going to get outrageous. And when I say he couldn't compute that, and he would get even more intense and more in my face because his insecurities came out and his fear of thinking that we're never going to bring this back up again and it's not going to get resolved. And he needed to feel peace to have an answer or a resolution right now. And he would be pushing, pushing, pushing my boundaries, and I would lose it. Like you would not believe, because I'm like a cornered animal. After a lot of therapy, and a lot of work, he now sees, wow, I get a better version of Jen. And she does always come back like she said she was going to. And we do talk about it peacefully. And the way she comes back to me, I actually feel better about it because I feel more supported from her. And then he realized that having that break himself really helped him to recenter. So I spoke up a lot. I
Yeah.
still didn't get the support, but I had to find outside resources, right? To help give us that support and help us bridge the gap of that misunderstanding. So, if someone keeps disrespecting your boundaries, you have to say, okay, we're going to end the conversation, or we're going to leave the space and just take a break from the dynamic. Because, when you're evaluating, you have to ask yourself, is this a one time thing or is this a pattern?
Right.
Because if it's a pattern, it might be time to take some stronger, or put in some stronger consequences or bigger distances. I had a particular situation, Sandra, I think you know about this, that I had a friend that there were some underlining behaviors and interactions that drives you up a wall, right?
Yeah.
And it's just so unbecoming in so many ways, but it's someone's personality. So you don't want to be like, hey, you have to change to make me feel comfortable, right? But this was a core thing for me, and it like just literally irked me so bad that any time I was around this person, it made a barrier, and I didn't want to be around them, and I avoided things all the time. It took me 13 years to speak up calmly. Otherwise, I just held it in. I was resentful. I was avoiding having interactions and all this other stuff because it created a space I just didn't want to be in. And it has taken so much work for me internally. Everybody thinks I speak up and that I say what's on my mind all the time. And I'm like, y'all would never have a clue about the stuff that I don't say.
Sure.
Like, it
Yeah.
would blow your mind. But it took me 13 years to confidently and calmly say, you know what? I love you, but I need you to know, and I need you to hear me because this is serious right now, that this situation that you're creating does not make me want to be in this situation with you again. It does not make me want to be in this environment. I feel like you're not taking it seriously. I don't feel that you are acknowledging how you're actually behaving and how you're making me feel. And I have spoke up and said that's enough. And I'm not comfortable with that. And I don't like this, or I don't want to do that. And you are continuing to do it and thinking that's playful and funny. And I just want to say to you, it's not funny. And I don't find it playful. It's making me uncomfortable. And I just want you to know that I'm probably not going to hang out with you in this situation again because of this. And I said it, calmly and stuff. And you never know how someone's going to respond. But
Correct.
a lot of people don't even know how they're being received.
Hmm.
So I feel like opening and being vulnerable and calm and loving, because it's not about winning, right? I'm not trying to be right or wrong. I just want to share from a loving place of like, hey, this may or may not be intentional. You may or may not know what you're doing, but like, I literally just can't anymore. And it was met with some processing and a little bit of conversation. And then I feel like it genuinely led to a little bit more deepening of the relationship because we were able to speak comfortably
Hmm.
in an uncomfortable situation and grow from it. So I'm kicking myself that it took me 13 years, but I also am like, timing is what it is.
Well, as I had said earlier, what I did as a teenager is not what I'm doing now in terms of my maturity and, my emotional growth, right? So,
Mhm.
it took 13 years because you're at that place now.
Mhm.
And, maybe you're taking away judgment, or you're taking away some of the other aspects that can cloud the actual true meaning of what the message you want to convey. And I applaud you for that, because people will just stay in relationships and in family situations or friendships that are just and you're carrying that burden, right? And I would never want to give anyone in my life a burden to carry of, it's so draining when I hang out with Sandra, or it really bothers me that she does this. And something can, that little thing can help me reflect and say, oh, wow, I didn't realize I did that. Okay, let me look at that and see what I can do. So, kudos for you to doing something really challenging.
Yeah, thanks. I feel good about it. I feel proud with the way I led, and I'm happy to know that it was met still with love from my friend, and we are continuing to work on and still build our relationship after 13 years. What's a time though, Sandra, maybe when setting a boundary actually deepened a relationship for you?
So I can sit here and talk about more about my husband and that whole, situation of me with the steel cage walls and the barbed wire and all of that. But I'm going to pivot and do another take on this, right?
Okay.
So I manage a team, and we have weekly calls, and there was an opportunity for us to share just something that was happening within our program. The change is always hard, and I get that, right? So there was a reaction and a response to the changes that were being made that wasn't supportive of the team, and it wasn't supporting specialized members of our team. And I was disappointed not by the reaction of change, because yes, let's talk about it. Let's problem solve. Let's hear some of your concerns. Let's address some of those concerns. But when it's done in a way that's not supportive of members of the team who have contributed and done lots of work and really supported, the circumstance that they had, it didn't feel good. So I left the call thinking about it and saying, I can't let this go. I really would like to find an opportunity to share my feelings about it in a way that's productive and in
Mm.
a way that will strengthen our bond as a team.
Versus
So,
scolding and being like, you
correct.
have a stinky attitude. Get out of here.
Exactly, exactly. So I called every member of the team and I said, I don't want to do this in a group forum. I really want to kind of come down to it, but I just want to share my observations, and I want to share my feelings, and I also want us to think about different ways to express some concerns, right? And with it not kind of beating down on other members of the team who are in present in the call.
Hmm?
So the conversations, because I said I talked to everyone, went really well. And there was an opportunity for me to dialogue with them on some of the things that they were concerned about. And I said, all of this is valid. I am not saying let's throw it out the window, let's ignore it because it's going to affect your work,
Hmm.
but it's looking at about a different approach. And I feel like I'm really developing a a camaraderie with the team where we can have those conversations and it being productive without it being destructive to others. So this is how I felt like it strengthened that dynamic and that relationship. And then, of course, with Michael, it's just there was so much going on with me when we first got together, and to get the level of patience, resilience. And I would say to him, like, I just went through something really traumatic, and I just I just, there's certain things I feel like I can't do. And he's like, I can wait. I can help you. What do you need from me? How can I support you? Do you need more? Do you need less? And I was never that vulnerable with someone, especially someone closing into my heart, right? Like just
Hmm.
getting closer and closer. And
In
I
the
said,
closest circle, yeah.
yeah. So those are, two very separate examples,
Mm.
but it just shows the power of communication, vulnerability, and really the desire to grow and level up.
Well, by you stepping back and reflecting your team, and you chose to step up first to be vulnerable,
Mm,
right? And say to them, okay, this is how I feel about all this, and give the observation for them to take accountability for as well too. It really created an environment of genuine teamwork and collaboration and consideration for everybody as a whole, not just for themselves, and to not let your team meetings be just like a vent session,
hmm
right? Where we all come to complain. And at the end of the day, behind the scenes, what you may not see is you may have given them a little bit of courage to be more vulnerable with someone in their own life.
mm,
And that might inspire them to look at their entire team differently and approach things differently. And that's why I try to say to people sometimes that be the first one to be vulnerable and speaking up for what you need. If you say, you know what, I would love to, but I am feeling emotionally drained lately. So I'm only going to go for 2 hours. So I'll stay till 2 o'clock, but I'm going to leave after that. I hope you can understand that. And that is being vulnerable, right? That's not over explaining. And that's having a boundary. And you're saying it in a respectful way to your host or whatever the situation is. You have your out, and now look, you could be inspiring someone else, that host from then on out. They would be like, wow, I didn't realize that was what it was like to experience someone having a boundary. I want to try that for myself now. It's a very positive thing that can ripple out.
Yes.
Let's see if we can build a boundary formula. And so, Sandra, this might be like a no brainer to you. I kind of broke it down into 4 pieces where you would describe a situation, express how it makes you feel, right? You've already shown this, assert your need or limit, and then reinforce the benefit for you and the relationship. And you did that exact thing with your team.
Hmm.
How do you think that? Can you give me an example of maybe what that would look like in either a family dynamic, not necessarily love? Let's think of like holidays when all the family is coming over and you might have a family member that triggers you,
Hmm.
maybe for no particular reason, or maybe for a lot of silent reasons. Maybe they trigger you. So let's think about your hosting. It's the holidays. You have that one family member that's coming over. Let's describe a situation, and it can be completely made up, and then how it would make you feel, your limits, your needs, and then how we reinforce the benefit.
Yeah, so let's say you're hosting a dinner and you have that family member who is a negative Nancy, someone who always has something to say or a snide remark or not as contributing as other members. And I think it's one of those things where expressing how you feel, I think you can't wait till the event happens, right? I think we know right now we're
Mm,
in the holiday season.
that's true.
It's just giving, for me personally, I want to give people an opportunity, right? And you're not in my body and you're not in my mind, and you don't know how your presence or your words affect me. So it's my
Mm-hmm.
responsibility to share that with you. So,
Mm-hmm.
hey, we're going to have dinner at my house for Thanksgiving. We would really love you to be there. And I wanted to just share with you, just a couple of things because I really want this to be a great and fun event. And last time we had met, there were some comments made about blah blah blah, and it just made me feel a little uncomfortable. And I just wanted to share that with you because I really am looking forward to having a fun and positive event on Thanksgiving. And I think that in order for you to kind of hear how I'm feeling, I just wanted to share that with you and give you that opportunity to just hear from me and know what my thoughts are about it. So I think that would be kind of the expression of the feelings. And then assert your need or limit. So if it's a particular topic that the person was bringing up, just say, I would really appreciate if we don't bring up politics, or we don't bring up, the circumstance with, aunt and uncle, whatever, just so that we can have we can kind of keep the peace and talk about what's happening in everyone else's life and really focus in on that. So that would be asserting the need or the limit that you're looking to create. And then just say, I'm really excited that you're going to join. I'm really happy that we're going to be together during this, and just asserting the positive about that person and that person being in your life. So
Man, you are so freaking right, though, about I never thought about that part of approaching it ahead of time,
yes,
because that's the part that gives me the stress and anxiety and all this other stuff. Because the whole time I'm planning the event, every detail of the event, all I can think about is that one trigger and
yes,
when it's going to come up.
yes,
And then when the day happens, I'm just waiting and waiting and waiting for the shoe to drop. And you're right. You have to address it ahead of time and
Mhm.
calmly and directly in whatever way that is for your relationship, right? Is it having coffee? Is it having a phone call? Is it
Yes.
going for a walk together and talking about it? But golly, you're so right. You have to get it out ahead of time.
And I say this in my like hosting brain because
Mhm.
when I host something, the way I prepare myself is that I do not want any boundaries for me. I'm sorry, not, I don't want any obstacles. I don't mean boundaries. I don't want any
Mhm.
obstacles of the day of hosting because I truly want to be present. So anything from food to activities or events, like I am a planner and a preparer because all I want to do is sit around and laugh. I want to play games with you. I want to be present and I don't want to sit in the kitchen cooking while my
Yeah.
guests are in the living area and enjoying because I want to be a part of that. And I
Yes.
think this is part of this whole preparing piece for me because at least I don't have to have my imagination create all the scenarios and
Yes.
then be on high alert on the
You need
day
to do like a wise hosting episode because geez, I'm like, yes, you're talking about all the things that I did wrong. Yes, I did all of those things all the time.
it's just, and because I genuinely enjoy getting people together and I want to be a part of that, and I don't want to just facilitate it. I want to truly be in the trenches with everyone else just enjoying the fun. So I think I love your formula of like identifying the feelings and the limits and then also reaffirming like, the relationship because
Mhm.
as I said earlier, people tend to find boundaries as a defense, which sometimes I've done too. And it's
Mhm.
just, I want to share with you my true and honest feeling because I want to develop this relationship more, because you're important to me, because I love you, as opposed to it being okay, let's put up our fists and let's go at it.
Girl, you probably just changed my life right there. Maybe that's why I always got so drained with hosting all the time, right? Because
Yeah,
no one gave me the hosting 101. I need the wise hosting Sandra edition of this. This is so
let's do
because
it.
I want to be in it and I want to experience it, but then I end up being of service and catering to, and I don't get to participate in. So
Yeah,
that
yeah.
might have been where I've been going wrong. Well, I have an example of a weird boundary barrier thing that I think a lot of people might have. It's simple and menial, but it still matters. But when I get a text late at night, I
Mm,
feel overstimulated because I need to typically be phone free like after 9 p.m. And that way I can be fully present when I do reply, right? And you can compare that to a barrier of getting annoyed every time you see a message, feeling obligated to respond, and then resenting the person so much that you avoid them entirely.
yes.
And what I had realized is I cannot control when somebody thinks about me.
Mm,
I can't control when they're like, "Oh my god, I wanna share this with Jen," versus whatever platform that is, but I can control the do not disturb button on
amen.
my phone, right? You have people in your favorites list, right, which are, like, your most important. So, like, if you have your phone on do not disturb, they can still get through if it's an emergency, but I had I'm not gonna go and tell every single person I know, "Please excuse me, don't text me after 9 o'clock. Don't send me any messages after 9 o'clock." Well, what if they're in a different time zone, right? Like, if they don't send you something when the inspiration hits, maybe they won't send it at all.
Mhm.
So, I still want their information. I just want to be able to show up best. So, I had to find, right, an adjustment there to have a boundary instead of creating a barrier. And
Yes.
I could do that with a simple do not disturb button.
I love it.
The self trust shift. The self trust part, right, is where we have learned these boundaries, we've learned the formula, what we need, and now it's trusting ourselves to not abandon ourselves when things get loud and messy and hard, and to really hold strong to those boundaries. It's listening to your gut and not talking yourself out of it, like, saying yes or no based on what's actually right for you, not what is keeping everybody else happy. We're not
Mhm.
people pleasers anymore, right?
Nope. That's right.
So self-trust sounds like maybe like I need to take a break before I burn out. Right. We talked about earlier in the episodes where all those years I never took a break and I would rush, 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 and then crash. And then I realized I could take a 15-minute break for myself because I gave myself permission finally. No one else was holding me back, just me. And I would go take a 15-minute break, and my stamina was so much more extended, right? Because I gave myself what I needed. What's something you would say now with confidence, though, Sandra, that used to scare you?
That used to scare me. So I think now is, can we talk? Like I would avoid things, or I would allow things to happen. And now it's really stepping back and saying, okay, how would they know? How would they know that I'm feeling overwhelmed or bombarded or any of those things, because I have never spoken up.
It's true.
So that is something that I say now, that I feel like, okay, years ago, I would never. I would just swallow it and just continue on.
And mine's a little bit in the same lines of speaking up and saying things like this conversation's exhausting me right now. I need to sit with it and revisit it later. And because I have some people around me that will talk about either heavy things
Mm.
or intellectually heavy that I really have a lot to just process to see how I feel about it, or family members or friends that like have that heavy conversations that are just like negative, and I can't do a lot of that. And before I would literally just like keep my mouth shut and be miserable, but now I can say, you know what, this conversation is, it's either exhausting or it's heavy or it's a lot, and I just need to I need to sit with it and think about it. And I would never do that before. Never. But then there also was a time in my life where I had to ask myself if I was confusing being chill with
Hmm.
being disconnected. Because I thought, oh, I'm just gonna chill out and kind of be the quiet one at the event or whatever the situation was. And really I was just checking out
Yes.
because I didn't know how to navigate it.
Hmm.
And right, the alcohol was helping me navigate it and killing me later.
No, I
But
get it. Yeah.
it's just not a good coping mechanism. But you know, we talked about, instead of replying to the text and being all pissy, just, find a boundary. But if your nervous system could speak right now, what would it say it's trying to protect you from?
Other people's reaction to my honesty and vulnerability. And so I,
Like you're
you know,
afraid they're going to respond in a particular way to your vulnerability?
or take it for something else, or,
Misunderstood.
take it negatively, or take it as a judgment that I'm,
Mm,
judging them, or take it as dismissive of them,
I
of
see.
whatever the circumstance is.
Okay.
I just would, I know that being honest and vulnerable is important, and we should exercise that more. But there's also this feeling of, it makes things worse sometimes, because I just have been in situations where I needed to take a lot of energy and effort to explain that I wasn't personally attacking that person, or
Mm-hmm.
that I wasn't trying to look down on them,
Yes.
or that I was excluding them, or any of those things. And it's
Mm-hmm.
just, that's where it gives me pause. And I had said earlier, the reason why I said earlier is choosing your words wisely, is for those same reasons, because I've been in those circumstances where I'm saying to myself, I'm going to say it again, and I'm going to say it in a different way, and I'm going to try a different way. And I want you to ask me what you think I'm trying to say to you, because the message is not coming across. And I don't want my vulnerability to be a burden and now changing the dynamic of our relationship, right? In a negative way. I think whenever those conversations come up, or building those boundaries, my nervous system is protecting me from the potential
Mm-hmm.
of the other person receiving that message and what they think it means.
Do you find that stating in the very beginning things like, this in no way, shape, or form is a personal attack, or this is in no way, shape, or form a reflection of how I feel about you? Or do you ever have to put a preface in there to feel like get the vulnerability message across first to diffuse how they might react and your nervous system? Because obviously we can't control how anybody receives anything or how they react.
I think that I use that, and I also use it in, certain aspects around work where I have to say, like, we're going to take the emotion out of it. This is just an objective observation. And when someone approaches me with that, it triggers me,
Oh,
right?
really?
It triggers me when someone's
Really?
like, "Oh, this is no personal attack." It feels condescending. Something about
Interesting.
it. And that's a me thing. That's not a
Mhm.
like, because I do think it's an important tactic and I think it can diffuse for others. But it's interesting, my own, feeling around it. That's my truth. Like I when
What does work well for you when people what ways do people approach you vulnerable that they don't do that?
Yeah, yeah.
But, like, what's another way that actually resonates with you?
Well, I think when someone comes to me and it's like, something has really just been bothering me and I just want to share it with you. Is that
Mm,
okay? As opposed to, this is not a personal attack, because it feels like there's a different
you're
energy and emotion.
presupposing.
Because,
I can see it.
yeah, because I feel like with the coming to me with something that's on your heart, my heart is going to open because I'm like, something happened, something is off, something is wrong, let's talk about it. But when you come and say, this is not an attack on you, it's like, the person is grander in terms of like the figuring it all out, and it's a you problem, right? Or like, this is so, but that is my reaction to it. And I'm not saying that that isn't a good tool, because as I said, I use that tool too.
Mhm,
But for me, just I work better at it out of a place of vulnerability, and I think my
mhm,
empathy and my compassion opens more when
mhm.
I'm in that space. And then when I'm in the second space, my logical brain kicks in, and it's not, emotion driven. It's more kind of thinking through, what is this person trying to say?
Well, I now that you say the 2 different examples, I can kinda almost see the presupposition in the first one where I'm already presupposing that you're gonna take this as a personal attack, and I'm just putting that out there right now to get ahead of it so that we don't have any of your nonsense. And that's
Yes.
what it almost sounds like you're already assuming,
Hmm.
right, that I'm gonna take it as an attack and meltdown and all this other stuff, and that's kind of what it sounds like. So I could see how being that strong, independent person that does not wanna be told how to think, feel, act, would respond that way. And you are allowing people to speak to your tender side by saying, "I have something that's just been bothering me. Can we talk about it?" And I think in a lot of situations, a lot of people would respond well to that.
Right.
So I'm going to have to think about that and see how there's some more ways that I can try that, because I definitely have approached things in the assuming aspect. And now that I look at it, I don't think it's that kind. So I got to change it up. Well, let's reframe our barriers into boundaries before we leave here today. And sometimes we use silence and sarcasm or avoidance as a shield, but those blocks really just block the peace. And we need to reframe this like fear based barrier into an empowered boundary. For example, of instead of ignoring those late night texts and getting annoyed, we set our phone to do not disturb. So I didn't see your message until now because I turned off my notifications at night to recharge. But I'm hoping you have a great day, or whatever the case may be. You can't control when people text you. So if someone is in your life you've emotionally blocked instead of being honest with, what do you think would happen if you were honest with what you needed? These are some of the things that you have to think about. We
Yeah.
need to try to imagine this week and, just what would it look like if we honored our boundaries? Just the way our soul's been asking for. What feels different in your energy, your sleep, your body, your relationship? Maybe you're sleeping better and you feel lighter in conversations. After I shared with my friend after 13 years of the situation at hand, honestly, the next conversation we had was just so much more enjoyable. I just felt like the elephant was out of the room, and I don't know. I'm just so glad I took this step, and I hope you guys find little baby steps to take like that too.
Mhm.
The big takeaway today, though, is boundaries don't push people away. They create pathways to better relationships. You can love your people and still choose yourself. It's not selfish, it's how we protect our peace. You're
Mhm.
teaching, inspiring, and empowering everyone around you by showing what self respect looks like. So, we're going to invite you to do some shift activation journal prompts. And I have, let's see, how many do I have here today? Okay, I've only created 2. Sandra creates these mind blowing ones that literally rock my whole world. So if you could rewrite one recent conversation to protect your peace better, what would you say differently?
Yes, that's a good one.
And in Sandra's method of how she's been teaching us that we can write these things to people, to other people, and never give it to them,
Mhm.
golly, it really helps do that role play in a sense, right? And get the nervousness and the emotion out of your system. So rewrite that conversation that you recently had and write it in a different way of you approaching it in a different way. And the next one would be, what's one area where you could replace a reaction like snapping or shutting down, you know, and then take it into the week and think about the new pathways of peace. It's still along the same thing as replaying the conversation, but like think about a situation where you reacted really bad and shut down and you were not proud of that. And then maybe write it out about the new pathway that you would take to peace after learning some of these tools using the boundary formula. So, boundaries don't push people away, they create pathways for better relationships. If Talking Shift with us today sparked a new perspective or even brought something old to the surface, which many of these conversations do, we are so glad you're here for it, even if it's uncomfortable. Take a moment to check in. Just decide what's shifting with me right now. And if this episode resonated with you, show us some love. Leave us a review on your favorite socials with hashtag Shift Sisters Podcast. And remember to download your episode shift toolkit. Now go sip something yummy, take a deep breath, and know that you always have us here to talk shift with.
And that's it for today's shift. Thank you so much for sharing this space with us. If you're loving the conversation, become a shifty. Like, follow, subscribe, and most of all, share this episode with someone who's shifting too, or someone who seriously needs to get their shift together.
Do you have thoughts, questions, topic requests, or maybe you're feeling the nudge to collaborate? Visit us at shiftsisterpodcast.com. We'd love to hear from you. We're so grateful for your presence, your friendship, and your willingness to do the work with us. Because shift happens and we're not meant to do it alone.
We'll meet you back here next time to breathe, reflect, and talk shift.